If you've been scrolling through endless shop press listings, comparing capacities, stroke lengths, and price tags, and you still feel like you're not sure which machine will actually get the job done without blowing your budget, this review is meant to clear that up. I've spent the past few weeks talking to a handful of mechanics, watching a few garage setup videos, and reading through the specs that matter most to people who actually use a press on a daily basis. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's start with the basic question. Do you need a 20-ton press? For most hobbyist automotive work, think straightening bent brackets, removing stuck bearings, or compressing clutch plates. 20 tons is more than enough. It's also the sweet spot for small shop owners who do light industrial tasks like pressing bushings or forming sheet metal. If you're a professional shop that regularly handles engine blocks or large structural components, you'll quickly outgrow that capacity. On the other hand, if you only need a hand crank or a 5-ton unit for occasional household repairs, you'll be paying for power you'll never tap. The AFF 20-ton hydraulic shop press arrives in a fairly compact frame that you can bolt to a workbench or set on a sturdy floor. The first thing I noticed in the videos was the 8-position bed height adjustment. That little feature means you can bring the workpiece up to a comfortable level whether you're standing or kneeling, and it cuts down on the amount of awkward lifting you'd have to do with a fixed-height press. For someone who spends hours aligning a bent suspension knuckle, the ability to raise the table a few inches and keep the hydraulic cylinder in line with the work reduces both fatigue and the risk of the ram slipping off the target. The press uses an 8-inch stroke, which is decent for most pressing tasks that involve compressing or straightening. In practical terms, that length gives you enough travel to pull a deeply stuck bolt out of a housing, but you won't be able to push very thick plates into a tight fit. A friend of mine, who runs a custom bike shop, told me he could straighten a 2mm bent axle in under a minute, but when he tried to press a 10mm thick steel plate into a tight die, the ram just hit the end of its travel and he needed a larger machine. So the 8-inch stroke is a practical middle ground, great for most auto repairs and light industrial tasks, not a replacement for a full-size floor press. One feature that stands out on paper is the overload protection. In a busy garage where a new tech might be eager to test the limits, that safety valve can prevent the hydraulic pump from overpressurizing the cylinder, which in turn protects both the operator and the equipment from catastrophic failure. I saw a video where a user tried to press a seized engine mount. The overload valve tripped, and the ram just stopped without any sudden jerks. That is the sort of real-world safety net that can keep a beginner from injuring themselves and keep the press from costly repairs. Now for the downsides that matter once the box is opened. The AFF press is built with a fairly basic frame that doesn't have the heavy-duty cross-bracing you see on higher-priced units. In practice, that means the press can wobble a little if you apply force unevenly, especially when you're dealing with a larger workpiece that extends beyond the standard footprint. For a casual user, a small amount of vibration is tolerable, but for a professional who needs consistent, repeatable results, that could be a source of inaccuracy. Also, the hydraulic pump is a standard 20-ton bottle jack. It's reliable, but it can be a bit noisy, and the pump lever requires a firm push to build pressure. If you're planning on using the press in a shared workshop space, the sound might be an annoyance. Another practical consideration is the footprint versus the capacity. The press sits on a fairly large base, which is necessary to keep the 20-ton rating stable, but that also means you need a dedicated spot on the floor. The unit isn't exactly portable. You can roll it on its little wheels, but you'll need to bolt it down for regular use. If you have a small garage where floor space is at a premium, you might find the size a bit restrictive compared to a more compact, lower tonnage model. Who should buy this? If you're a serious DIYer, a small automotive shop, or a hobbyist who does a steady stream of bodywork, suspension repairs, or light pressing tasks, the AFF 20-ton press gives you a decent amount of power for a price that won't break the bank. The adjustable bed and overload safety make it user-friendly for less experienced operators, and the 20-ton rating leaves room for growth as you take on slightly larger jobs. It also shines for people who need a reliable backup press for emergencies, say a broken clutch that needs to be compressed while you're waiting on a larger tool. Who should skip it? If you run a